Hey everyone, before the video starts, I just wanted to give you a little warning. This video contains a lot of images of snakes and spiders and other insects, so if you're not into that type of stuff, you can just turn off the video and listen to it audibly. Hey, what's up? My name's Ian. I'm a concept artist and illustrator, and I've been drawing monsters like most people as long as I can remember. And just like most people, I've been playing video games even longer than that. So you can imagine when Spore came out back in 2008, how juiced I was to get my hands on it. As a creative, being able to quickly and easily create and edit monsters on the fly in 3D at the time was a dream come true. The rest of the game, yeah, not so much. But that's a story for another time. But years later, I randomly reinstalled it and realized how amazing it was for concept art. 3D tools at the time, and still are, insanely pricey, hard to run, and even harder to learn. Most people like myself were still using pen and paper at the time. So not perfect by any means, I realized it was less of a traditional game and more of a design tool, which a lot of Maxis games tended to be like back in the day. So after learning complicated sculpting tools, I came to realize it was as good, if not better, than any 3D program I was using at the time. So no, I'm not saying it's better than ZBrush or Blender, but for a quick 2-minute creature design I want to get out of my head, it more than gets the job done. I use it kind of like how people use SketchUp, to make quick, perspective-accurate designs using rough shapes. Concept art is all about speed, and using any tool at your disposal to come up with a believable idea. So being able to quickly mock up not only monsters, but also vehicles, spaceships, and other structures with modular parts became another invaluable tool for me when designing. So I thought I'd do something a little beyond just playing a game of Spore. Over the course of this series, I'll be populating what I hope to be a semi-believable alien planet using Spore's creation system, with creatures, civilizations, structures, ships, biomes, and ecosystems. I'll be combining art tips, gameplay, and some educational stuff relating to biology, all in a hopefully entertaining series of videos. So hopefully you can take some of this with you on your own art journey, or you can get a kick out of me populating this planet one alien at a time. I would quickly like to touch on how in-depth Spore has become. Now with modding and readily available 3D programs, Spore creations can quickly turn into high-resolution renders or even become detailed 3D prints. The only limitation now in Spore is your own imagination, as cliche as it sounds. I'll go over this more in depth in later videos. Have you ever wondered why you think something like this is cute and this not so much? Well, today I'm going to try to explain that while also trying to help you with some cool concept art tips while using the Spore Creature Creator. I am by no means a biologist. A lot of these techniques are from an artist's perspective, from classes I've taken and stuff I've read, so take this all with a grain of salt. I'm more focused on the visual aspect of the design and less on the biological realness. Think of it as a 3/4 ratio, where 75% of the design is leaning towards a cohesive visual aesthetic, and the latter 25% left to scientific accuracy. I'll get more into this later. Seeing as we will be populating an alien planet after all, I can't promise everything is going to be 100% biologically accurate. Creature design is a super fun and interesting part of concept art. Like any part of concept art, the key to its success is making whatever you're designing that's not real, believable. And how do we do that? By using real-world things as a basis for our designs. There's usually different ways to approach a concept. Sometimes it's what's referred to as blue sky, aka go wild, make something totally out there. But for the sake of this video, we'll be basing our designs a little closer to our own reality, which in the end, even though the design is fictitious, it's still grounded enough to let our viewer understand it, at least in an abstract way. With all that being said, we can take two things into account when designing a creature: some basic biology and the overall aesthetic we're trying to achieve. Looking back at this picture, there are key features of both these animals that we as humans view innately as cute and those that aren't. There are psychological principles behind shapes, colors, and other factors that make these things approachable or not. Large black eyes have been thought to trigger emotional responses in humans, thus making puppy dogs' eyes approachable. Soft round shapes and light tones play a massive part in design. On the contrary, an eagle with its small pupils, sharp angles, and menacing visage stir quite the opposite feelings. These traits can be used in design to help portray mood, without ever having to explain verbally the subject to someone. This is called visual storytelling and is one of the most important, if not most important things in all of design. Having your design quickly and decisively understood by your audience, not only visually but emotionally, is what all concept artists strive for. Let's take a look at how this is portrayed in media, as well as in biology, and thus can be implemented into your own designs and storytelling. Let's take a look at a few examples. Though it's pretty easy to tell when things are relatively human, seeing as we ourselves are people and are conditioned at a young age to understand emotions, facial expressions, and body language for the most part. But as seen in those examples, less subtle design choices like colors and shapes give off subconscious clues to a character's motives. Though most animals do not have the level of complex emotions and motivations humans do, we at times tend to project our own human emotions onto them. Again, using this photo as an example, a shoe-bill stork is not an animal with any nefarious motivation. It's simply an animal with a biological imperative to survive, but its eyes appear almost human-like, leading many to view it as scary. Other things such as humans' innate fear of snakes can be used and designed to subconsciously trigger emotional responses from your audience. This fear is said by some scientists to be a genetic response dating back to when snakes were a serious and deadly threat to our early ancestors. Examples like this show that there's a subconscious and innate response to certain physical and visual stimuli, things humans have evolved to view with certain negative or positive emotional responses. Beyond the subconscious, there are more obvious things when viewing an animal to determine if it's in a good or bad mood, such as physical appearance, like dilated pupils, curled lips, and bared teeth. Though this does not morally place the animal, we as humans tend to put these aggressive and more alien features into the bad camp when it comes to pop culture references, usually being aligned with the monster or bad guys in TV, film, and video games. On the contrary, humans being mammals tends to lend itself more toward our own bias in finding other mammals more likable. Like I said previous, many mammals are much more easily emotionally read and feel more familiar to us, thus lending to them being portrayed differently in media. And opposite of our fear of snakes, humans are thought to have a positive genetic predisposition to mammals, especially young ones. Some think this is because we've cohabitated with them for thousands of years, as well as their young, stirring a genetic parenting response rooted deeply in our mammalian survival. And now moving away from the abstract and subconscious, we'll lastly be finishing up with how an animal has evolved to survive its own environment. Most of the time, if you know what you're looking for, an animal's physical appearance can tell you everything you need to know about its habitat and its specific place in it. Environments vary wildly, thus demanding specific evolutionary traits from the animals and plants that live in them to survive. This lends hugely to the creative process and believability of your creature. You wouldn't have a slow-moving predator in an open savanna plain where its food source has evolved for great speed and evasion in an area it can move around unimpeded in, would you? So to finish this lesson up, we'll close with understanding just that, predators and prey. A predator is an animal, or in this case a creature, that hunts and kills other creatures to feed on for survival. And prey, an animal that is caught and killed by another for food. Just like we spoke about before, pertaining to environments, depending on if an animal is hunting or being hunted dictates just what tools it uses to survive. Things such as camouflage, speed, and its own unique defenses. On Earth, predators tend to fall into two different predatory camps: ambush and pursuit predators. Pursuit predators, as their name suggests, chase their prey down. Thus, their bodies have evolved to be muscular and agile, aerodynamic and streamlined. Not only do they need to be able to catch their ever-elusive prey, they also need to be powerful enough to subdue it, granting them evolutionary armaments like large teeth and claws. Interestingly, many times prey caught by pursuit predators has evolved similar body types to their pursuers in hopes of eluding capture. I will show both pursuit predators as well as their prey's silhouettes here, so you can see similar traits they both have that can be portrayed in your design to help convey a quick moving creature. So now we're starting to understand the biological and subconscious parts of design. Let's take notes on what makes a creature perceived as fast. Subconsciously, we as humans might think cheetah print and think speed already, but remember that's subconscious. Biologically, a creature that is quick tends to be thinner, muscular, and elongated, with longer limbs and a lower posture and center of gravity. Perhaps a long tail like a cheetah for steering at high speed. Ambush predators are quite the opposite, usually lying in wait for unsuspecting prey to come across them. These animals tend to be uniquely evolved to fit their environments, thus some might consider them a little less restricting to design. They are not limited to a certain body type like pursuit predators, coming in a wide variety of shapes and sizes. and as well as being highly adaptive, sporting all sorts of interesting evolutionary traits to help catch prey, like lures and stingers. Again, here's some silhouettes. Let's take a moment to study some overlapping themes with these creatures that we can use when creating. They often have interesting shapes, usually dictated by where they tend to be hiding when awaiting prey. Interesting color choices and camouflage, powerful body parts like large mouths, claws, and stingers to rapidly catch their prey. I quickly want to touch on the fact that evolutionary traits are not mutually exclusive. There's a lot of overlap in biology. Pursuit predators share traits with ambush predators, as well as even their prey. Again, this is a more design-focused look at each. So what I personally find design-wise to help your creature be better perceived as one of these two types of predators. I should touch on the fact that not all predators look like this. A lot of predators also can be prey. As you can see, a lot of our preconceived notions come with the word predator. Some of the most effective predators are not what we perceive as big or even scary, and this is a perfect example of our subconscious as humans and what we think of when we think of words like hunting, predator, and prey. You can see here a leopard seal, a mammal with traits we spoke about earlier as familiar or even cute, but this is a deadly and highly evolved ocean predator. Just from a purely visual perspective, this is a perfect example of how quickly just one trait in design can change your creature's overall perceived demeanor. Its eye shifting from soft black pools to glowing orbs with eye shine drastically alters its physical appearance and thus its perceived threat to us as humans. On top of that, it also portrays biology's extremely complex nature and how it crosses thresholds all the time, especially when it comes to our own perception and preconceived notions of it as humans. Things can be scary and harmless, or approachable and deadly. And to finish up on predators, I quickly wanted to show some overlapping visual themes you can use for all predators to help decisively portray them when you're working. Sadly, in media, predators tend to be portrayed like we spoke about earlier, as scary, bad, or even evil at times. Using that, you can use things like psychologically unsettling natural colors or patterns in your work. Things like stranger shapes such as spines, insect-like hair, and antennae can quickly portray a more alien or sinister creature. Claws, teeth, stingers, and pincers also work. I would like to really drive the point home that the unfamiliar or alien often leaves humans unsettled and even scared at times. Humans like to understand their surroundings, meaning this can be used to great effect in design. Even if not used by a predator, off-putting traits, especially those borrowed from insects or invertebrates, can really execute a foreign yet believable feeling to a creature with great effect, thus making the design easily off-putting and even frightening. Insects, though small, still scare many people, so upscaling parts of their anatomy can truly terrify an audience. Insects are so foreign in comparison to mammals, let alone humans. They are often the closest thing to real-life monsters we see in media, and we can thank the greatest artist of them all for that, Mother Nature. Predators, just like humans, can usually be quickly perceived as a threat by their eyes. Many predators have very unique and complex eyesight to view great distances at night or in any other ways for making catching their prey that much easier. Eyes, like we've talked about, have deep psychological meaning and easily can distinguish your creature's mood, usually faster than any other physical or psychological feature. I'll be focusing on prey animals in another video. I would, though, quickly like to touch on the fact that prey animals are not passive and weak. By any means. Many animals like elephants, rhinos, and bison regularly kill their attackers, such as wolves and lions. Even smaller prey are known to take on attackers multiple times their size. All animals want to survive and evolve numerous ways to do so, including elaborate defenses that we will touch on soon. I want to close this biology section by once again stating these are loose approximations and guidelines to be taken when designing, not set in stone biological doctrine. Animals are exceedingly unique and cross lines and boundaries all the time. We didn't even touch on things like parasites and carrion, which have their own unique set of evolutionary tactics and traits they use to survive. Animals are amazing and ever-changing. We, as humans, are lucky to observe them scientifically or just for fun. So now that we've touched on the design process, let's finally take a look at Spore and how we can use it as a design tool. Spore uses all the same subconscious techniques, as well as biological tools we've just spoke about to dictate its part system. I've taken the time to split up these pieces into good, neutral, and bad parts using the scale we just spoke about earlier. Feel free at any time to pause this and take a look at them for yourselves and try to understand why things can be perceived from what we learned as good, bad, or neutral. Spore is a stylized world based more so around a funny cartoon aesthetic. With that being said, a lot of these parts are overly exaggerated and are a good way to show how we perceive things almost subconsciously as good or bad, as we spoke about earlier. As you can see, most of these parts are taken directly or heavily inspired by real-world animals. Like we spoke about earlier, softer, less threatening features tend to belong to herbivores and or prey animals, while the predators or scary parts are sharp, insect-like, or overtly alien. We as humans subconsciously know this, and Max has even grouped them into these such categories. Now I'll be designing a creature as well as explaining step by step how I do so, using things we've just learned about as well as Spore. This will be an abridged version, and I'll be going deeper into some cool Spore tips and overall design process in my later Spore creation videos. Now that we've looked at Spore's creature parts and realized they stem from the same psychological and biological principles we spoke about earlier, I made a small flowchart as a foundation for a basic creature design. By setting a few early parameters, we can quickly flesh out an idea for a creature we want to create. Let's start off by asking firstly, where will our creature live? What evolutionary traits might it have to survive a cold tundra or a lush jungle? Is it a predator or prey? How will it hunt or defend itself? This is where things get fun. Like I said before, break rules. Maybe you want your prey creature to be perceived as mean, or a gentle predator. Maybe you are going for realism and all the creatures are truly neutral. Mix and match parts, motives, and other interesting ideas and tropes to reach your own unique creation goals. Once you've figured out your basic creature's essence, the most important part to breathing life into it and making it believable comes into play. Take the ideas you've come up with on your flowchart and begin research and gathering reference. I spoke earlier about having a creature that is somewhat real, using a 75-25% ratio. To me, that's a good number to remember. It gives you enough creative freedom to make a unique alien creature while still basing it somewhat in reality. That number can move wherever you want it to. It's just a reference point. Perhaps you want it to be something more closely related to a creature on Earth, like a unicorn. It's just a horse with a horn, something like 90% to 10. This can help dictate the type of reference material you want to gather. All good artists use reference. Like I've stated time and time again, it aids in the realness you're trying to portray in your design. Not only that, but inspiration can be piqued from all sorts of different sources. Looking at and exploring new things can inspire you in ways you may have never thought. Never limit yourself. You never know what might give you your next great idea. For my first design, I was thinking something like a large bird that stalked its prey in high grasslands. Harkening back to things like terror birds, Deinonychus, or even velociraptors, I wanted to be a powerful and agile alien hunter with muscular legs and streamlined body, with interesting feathers and plumage. Like I said, I'm basing this more in a realistic setting, so I'm staying away from anything in Spore that can be perceived as funny, so it has a more neutral, realistic aesthetic. When gathering reference, I zero in on interesting images that catch my eyes right away. Using what we've learned, what do we think about when we think of birds? Feathers, flight, speed, interesting colors, claws, beaks. On top of that, when searching, I try to look for more unique attributes as well as common ones. I like the crest on this cassowary. It almost looks like a helmet made out of bone, as well as its strange skin tufts. Birds' bodies and features come in all sorts of interesting colors and shapes, so finding and using different feather sizes, textures, and patterns is also important for believability. Powerful birds like emus and ostriches are my first thoughts when trying to come up with the initial musculature and build for our design. Though storks are not fast, their overall shape can be used when trying to figure out what our animal's general silhouette would look like. Many storks hunt in wetlands and wade through tall grass, similar to the idea I had for this creature. So I try to take their shape into account when coming up with a believable body structure. Like I've said before, not all things need to be 100% biologically accurate. We take the subconscious pieces of a large stalking creature and add them to our design. And finally, this is intended to be an alien creature after all. In this early process, I like to think about blending two or more animals together. This usually can yield fantastic results. I was thinking about a more familiar animal like a dog to pair with our more exotic avian design, seeing as many wild dogs tend to live in grasslands too. As for something a little more out there, I was drawn to this orchid mantis. Its interesting colors and shapes could be used to bring a little more uniqueness to our design. Trying to find interesting balance between the familiar and alien is always a fun part of the process. And lastly, don't be afraid to experiment. Try using random inanimate objects and other things found in nature such as plants, coral, and other interesting organic materials and patterns. Like I said, depending on where you put your believability meter can point you in a direction of what to look up. Maybe you want to base your creature on a sentient trash can or other non-living material. Theories like silicon-based life and other cool scientific ideas can bring realness to even the weirdest of designs. The key to all this is that it's your own unique design. Trust the process and enjoy it. Half the fun is watching the thing you're designing take shape right before your very eyes, one piece at a time. So now onto the Spore Creature Creator. As I said earlier, this will be an abridged version in this video. My next video, we will spend more time and emphasis designing in and outside of Spore. I'll be running the Creature Creator process at double the speed with a few stops along the way to explain what I'm doing in-game. It's important to note while designing in the Spore Creator, the game is limited by the amount of pieces it offers. Many times you must be resourceful and creative, using random pieces to portray something that may not be present in the game. You can see that I've mocked up a basic shape using the stork or ostrich body type with long, powerful legs. I'm using horns as stand-ins for feathers. Spore's eye selection tend to lean more towards the comical. As I said earlier, they lend more to a cartoon or funny aesthetic, so I tend to use the black eyes as my go-to eyes to give the creature a more neutral, realistic appeal. I'm trying the larger mouth with fangs to try and portray a predatory feel to the creature. My initial designs here seem to be leaning more towards a reptilian bird hybrid. Here's another version of the concept we came up with. I ended up working with a little bit more off camera, focusing more on its long legs and streamlined body, getting rid of the wider, bigger face and beak, and using something more crocodilian or reptile-like in appearance. Now this is the fun part, taking a screenshot of your finished Spore model and sketching over it to start the rendering process. Here's where you take all the placeholder pieces such as spines and horns and turn them into feathers and other things that may not be present in the Spore creature creator. It's important to remember that this shouldn't be used as a crutch. Remember when sketching over your model to practice your anatomy and rendering skills. This should be used as a tool to improve and finish your work quickly, and not a way to cheat yourself in your art abilities. With that being said, I ended up converting the creature into an alien-like dinosaur, but felt that it was a little boring or uninspired. So as I worked, I started to incorporate more avian and canine-like features. Here's some early renders I came up with. Like I stated prior, concepting is all about coming up with multiple designs as quickly as possible. This first page, I was focusing on a quicker, slender creature that obviously takes real-world inspiration from raptors and other smaller theropod dinosaurs. I wanted them to be thin but muscular, like we learned about with pursuit predators, perhaps pack hunters like their earthly counterparts. They have slim bodies and long feathers and other protuberances that lend to their perceived speed. Long tails and claws are also prominent, lending to their predatory aura. I tried incorporating the bony headplate from the cassowary photos from earlier, again using real-world things to add believability to our design. This was the first more fleshed out render for the more nimble creature design. I ended up doing both a more canine as well as bird focused variant, with one having a beak and the other having a more dog-like snout. I added a rubbery translucent skin to cover the bony tail as well as the head in certain renders, to add to a more alien idea for the creature as a whole. I also designed a few different eyes as well, to try and convey different emotional tones for the creature. This was the second version of the nimble design without any of the feathers, focusing more on a streamlined creature without anything causing it drag while it chased its prey. It's also a lot more minimalist and kind of reminds me of a sport bike. This is just a quick slide of a few real-world physical traits I took from animals to help lend to some realism in the design. On this page, I was moving away from the slender and focused more on larger, more powerful designs, bigger mouths, different leg placements, and tail structures. I also wanted to make sure I followed through with my initial design concept of a powerful crane-like stalking predator with bigger jaws and legs, so I made this design more focused around a stork or pelican-like beak, almost looking T-Rex-like. I found it fun to try and balance a real-world animal and something more alien. I added the same jelly-like coating over the skin from the alternate speed design to really bring home the alien vibe. And just for some fun, I made this alien bird call in a simple audio program. And lastly, an animated landscape I created of the type of environment our creature would inhabit. A vast open plain or steppe land where it would use its great speed to take down its prey. So these are the original Spore designs and what they eventually turned into. Again, Spore is a great tool for all levels of artists and designers. Not only that, but it's also incredibly fun and relaxing. I can't say how mellow it is to just put on an audiobook or some music and start designing some creatures. Hey, what's up? This is Ian. Just wanted to say a couple things here at the end of the video. Firstly, really appreciate it if you watched and stuck around to the end here. Hopefully you found it informative, or if anything else, mildly entertaining. Just wanted to say a couple things about the channel. Have a lot of content coming up, this Spore series and other videos relating to Spore, as well as other videos that are kind of like this one, where I take stuff I like, video games and other things like that, and make little stories out of them. So in other videos on my channel, I kind of explain I'm a jack of all trades, kind of master of none. So I have a lot of stuff regarding art coming up. If you like that type of thing, feel free to subscribe. Give these videos thumbs up. I would greatly appreciate it. And again, this channel is just here for art and a place for people to hang out. I like to watch long form videos while I'm drawing and being creative. So yeah, inspired by other artists, and I hope I can do the same for others. So again, I really appreciate you sticking around, and see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.